The Heisman Memorial Trophy Award is awarded annually to the most outstanding player in college football in the United States whose performance best exhibits the pursuit of excellence with integrity. Winners epitomize great ability combined with diligence, perseverance, and hard work. It is presented by the Heisman Trophy Trust in early December before the postseason bowl games. The award was created in 1935 for the most valuable football player in the East by the Downtown Athletic Club. After the death of the club's athletic director, John Heisman, the award was named in his honor and broadened to include players west of the Mississippi. Heisman had been active in college athletics as a football player, a head football, basketball, and baseball coach, and an athletic director. It is the oldest of several overall awards in college football, including the Maxwell Award, Walter Camp Award, and the AP Player of the Year. The Heisman and the AP Player of the Year honor the most outstanding player, while the Maxwell and Walter Camp Awards recognize the best player, and the Archie Griffin Award recognizes the most valuable player. Trophy design: the trophy itself, designed by sculptor Frank E. Lascaux, is modeled after Ed Smith, a leading player in 1934 for the now-defunct New York University football team. The trophy is made out of cast bronze, is 13.5 inches tall and weighs 25 pounds. E. Lascaux had asked Smith, his former George Washington High School classmate, to pose for a commissioned sculpture of a football player. Smith did not realize until 1982 that the sculpture had become the Heisman Trophy. The Downtown Athletic Club presented Smith with a Heisman Trophy of his own in 1985. From its inception in 1935, the statue was cast by Diligence and Clust in New York until 1980, when Diligence and Clust was sold to Herff Jones. For a time until at least 2008, the statues were cast by Roman Bronze Works in New York. Selection: originally only players east of the Mississippi were eligible, but since 1936 all football players in all divisions of college football are eligible for the award, though winners usually represent Division I football bowl subdivision schools. There are three categories of persons eligible to vote for the award winner: sports journalists. Heisman.com states that sports journalists are to be the determinants of the award since they are informed, competent, and impartial. There are 870 media voters, 145 voters from each of 6 regions. Previous Heisman winners. According to Heisman.com, there are currently 57 prior winners eligible to vote and, thus, 57 potential votes. Fans: the survey collected by ESPN.com constitutes one Heisman vote. Each voter identifies 3 selections, ranking them in order. Each first-place selection is awarded 3 points. Each second-place selection is awarded 2 points. Each third-place selection is awarded 1 point. Voters must make 3 selections and cannot duplicate a selection, else the ballot is invalid and none of the selections count. The accounting firm Deloitte is responsible for the tabulation of votes, which has moved almost exclusively to online voting since 2007. Notable achievements: Larry Kelly and Clint Frank of Yale were the first teammates to win the Heisman Trophy, in 1936 and 1937. Niall Kinnick of Iowa was the only Heisman Trophy winner to have a stadium named after him. In 1972, the University of Iowa renamed its football complex Kinnick Stadium. Doc Blanchard was the first junior to win the Heisman Trophy when he led Army to the national title in 1945. Paul Hornung was the only player to win the Heisman Trophy as a player for a losing team. He took the award at Notre Dame 1956, when the Irish finished a dismal 2-8 on the year. John David Crow of Texas A&M holds the distinction of being Bear Bryant's only Heisman Trophy winner. Ernie Davis was the first African-American player to win the Heisman Trophy. He attended Syracuse University and was the overall first-round draft pick in 1962, yet never played a game in the NFL as he was diagnosed with leukemia and died in 1963. Terry Baker was the only player to win the Heisman Trophy and play in the Final Four in the NCAA basketball tournament in the same school year. Archie Griffin of Ohio State is the only player to receive the award twice, winning it as a junior in 1974 and a senior in 1975. Steve Spurrier, the 1966 recipient as a Florida Gator, became the first Heisman Trophy winner to coach a winner in 1996. Charlie Ward of Florida State was the only player to win the Heisman Trophy and play in the National Basketball Association. Charles Woodson of the University of Michigan is the only primarily defensive player to win the award, beating out Heisman favorite Peyton Manning, quarterback for the University of Tennessee, in 1997. He was a standout cornerback, but also occasionally played as a wide receiver and punt returner. In 2007, Tim Tebow was the first sophomore to win the Heisman. In 2012, Johnny Manziel became the first redshirt freshman to win the award. In 2013, Jamery Winston became the youngest player to ever win the award, at 19 years and 342 days old. He also won the BCS National Championship that same year, becoming the first freshman ever to win both awards the same season. Ohio State and Notre Dame have the most number of Heisman trophies won, each with 7. Ohio State has had 6 different players win the award. The player who received the most votes was Reggie Bush of USC in 2005, which has now been vacated. The player who won by the widest margin was Troy Smith of Ohio State in 2006. The closest margin of votes was in 2009 between winner Mark Ingram of Alabama and Toby Jahart of Stanford. 8 of the 74 Heisman Trophy winners are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and 4 winners have also been named Most Valuable Player in the Super Bowl. Some winners have gone on to play in other professional sports, including Bo Jackson in baseball and Charlie Ward in basketball. Pete Dawkins and Dick Asnoyer are the only winners not to pursue a professional sports career. Dawkins had a career with the United States Army where he achieved the rank of Brigadier General. Kasnoyer attended Harvard Business School, founded a consulting company specializing in sports marketing, and chaired the President's Council on Fitness, Sports, and Nutrition during 1988-89. University success, in addition to personal statistics, team achievements play a heavy role in the voting. A typical Heisman winner represents a team that had an outstanding season and was most likely in contention for the national championship or a major conference championship at some point in that season. Although the University of Chicago abandoned Division I football in 1939, and is now a Division III school, and Yale and Princeton are now Division I FCS, all 3 schools were considered major football programs at the time their players won the award. The closest that a player outside the modern Division I FBS came to winning the Heisman is 3rd place. In both cases, the players involved played for schools in what was at the time Division I AA, now Division I FCS. The first was Gordy Lockbaum from Holy Cross in 1987, followed by Steve McNair, from Alcorn State in 1993. Armanti Edwards, from Appalachian State University, was also briefly mentioned as a candidate for the award following Appalachian's upset of then number 5 ranked Michigan in 2007. Besides Griffin winning consecutive Heismans at Ohio State, 3 other programs had 2 different players win the Heisman Trophy in consecutive years: Yale, Army, and Southern California. With an earlier win in 2002, the USC program actually had 3 different winners within 4 years. Only 2 high schools have produced multiple Heisman Trophy winners, Woodrow Wilson High School in Dallas, Texas and Mater Dei High School in Santa Ana, California. Of the colleges where trophy namesake John Heisman coached, only Auburn University has produced Heisman winners, with Pat Sullivan in 1972, Bo Jackson in 1985, and Cam Newton in 2010. Class and age: until recently, most winners of the Heisman have been seniors. Texas A&M quarterback Johnny Manziel became the first freshman to win the Heisman in 2012. The following year, at 19 years and 342 days old, Florida State quarterback Jamery Winston became the youngest Heisman Trophy winner as a freshman. No sophomore won the Heisman in its first 72 years, at which point there were 3 consecutive sophomore winners: Tim Tebow in 2007, followed by Sam Bradford and Mark Ingram, Jr. Only a few juniors have won the award, starting with the 11th winner in 1945, Doc Blanchard. 5 players have finished in the top 3 of the Heisman voting as freshmen or sophomores before later winning the award: Angelo Bertelli, Glenn Davis, Doc Blanchard, Derek Walker, and Herschel Walker. 6 players have finished in the top 3 as freshmen or sophomores but never won a Heisman: Clint Castleberry, Marshall Faulk, Michael Vick, Rex Grossman, Larry Fitzgerald, and Adrian Peterson. 4 players have specifically finished second in consecutive years: Glenn Davis, Charlie Justice, Darren McFadden, and Andrew Luck. The oldest and youngest Heisman winners ever both played for Florida State. The oldest, Chris Wenk, was 28 years old when he won in 2000. He spent 6 years in minor league baseball before enrolling at FSU. The youngest winner is 2013 recipient Jamari Winston, who was less than a month shy of his 20th birthday. Position: the Heisman is usually awarded to a running back or a quarterback. Very few players have won the trophy playing at a different position. 2 tight ends have won the trophy, Larry Kelly and Leon Hart. Also, Desmond Howard and Tim Brown won as wide receivers. Charles Woodson is the only primarily defensive player to win the award, doing so as a defensive back, kick returner, and occasional wide receiver for Michigan in 1997. Legendary linebacker Dick Butkus only placed 6th in 1963 and 3rd in 1964 and could qualify as an interior lineman, as he played center on offense during these two-way player days. The highest finish ever for any individual who played exclusively on defense is second, by defensive end Hugh Green of Pittsburgh in 1980 and linebacker Manti Te'o of Notre Dame in 2012. No interior lineman on either side of the ball has ever won the award, although the offensive guard Tom Brown of Minnesota and the offensive tackle John Hicks of Ohio State placed second in 1960 and 1973, respectively. Rich Glover, a defensive lineman from Nebraska, finished third in the 1972 Voltaire Euro, which was won by his Cornhusker teammate Johnny Rodgers. Washington's DT Steve Emtman finished fourth in voting in 1991. Ndamukong Suh of Nebraska finished fourth in 2009 as a defensive tackle. Also, Kurt Burris, a center for the Oklahoma Sooners football team, was a runner-up for the award in 1954 and Orlando Pace finished fourth in 1996 as an offensive tackle for Ohio State. Venue: because of damage to the downtown athletic club's facilities following 9/11, the award ceremony was moved to the New York Marriott Marquis in Times Square. After the DAC declared bankruptcy in 2002, the Yale Club assumed the presenting honors at its facility in 2002 and 2003. The ceremony moved to the Hilton New York for 2004 and has been presented annually at the Best Buy Theater, formerly named the Nokia Theater Times Square, since 2005. The 2008 Heisman press conference was held at the Sports Museum of America in Lower Manhattan. There was an entire gallery with a museum attraction dedicated to the trophy, including the making of the trophy, the history of the DAC, and information on John Heisman and all the trophy's winners. There was also a dedicated area celebrating the most recent winner, and the opportunity for visitors to cast their vote for next winner. The Sports Museum of America closed permanently in February 2009. History: the award was first presented in 1935 by the Downtown Athletic Club in Manhattan, New York, a privately owned recreation facility located on the Lower West Side near the later site of the former World Trade Center. It was first known simply as the DAC Trophy. The first winner, Jay Berwanger, was drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles but declined to sign for them. He never played professional football for any team. In 1936, John Heisman died and the trophy was renamed in his honor. Larry Kelly, the second winner of the award, was the first man to win it as the Heisman Trophy. The first African-American player to win the Heisman was Syracuse's Ernie Davis, who never played a snap in the NFL. He was diagnosed with leukemia shortly after winning the award and died in 1963. In 1966, former Florida Gators quarterback Steve Spurrier gave his Heisman Trophy to the university president Dr. J. Wainwright so that the award could be shared by Florida students and faculty. The gesture caused Florida's student government to raise funds to purchase a replacement for Spurrier. Since then, the Downtown Athletic Club has issued 2 trophies to winners, one to the individual and a replica to the school. Several Heisman trophies have been sold over the years. O.J. Simpson's 1968 trophy was sold in February 1999 for $230,000 as part of the settlement of the civil trial in the O.J. Simpson murder case. Yale and Larry Kelly sold his 1936 Heisman in December 1999 for the sum of $328,110 to settle his estate and to provide a bequest for his family. Charles White's 1979 trophy first sold for $184,000 and then for nearly $300,000 in December 2006 to help pay back federal income taxes. The current record price for a Heisman belongs to the trophy won by Minnesota halfback Bruce Smith in 1941 at $395,240. Paul Hornung sold his Heisman for $250,000 to endow student scholarships for University of Notre Dame students from his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. E. Lescau's original plaster cast sold at Sotheby's for $228,000 in December 2005. Television coverage. The presentation of the Heisman Trophy was not broadcast on television until 1977. Before 1977, the presentation of the award was not televised as a stand-alone special, but rather as a quick in-game feature. The ceremony usually aired on ABC as a feature at halftime of the last major national telecast of the college football season. ABC essentially showed highlights since the award was handed out as part of an annual weeknight dinner at the Heisman Club. At the time, the event had usually been scheduled for the week following the Army-Navy game. On December 8, 1977, CBS aired a 1-hour special to celebrate the presentation of the Heisman Trophy to Earl Campbell of the University of Texas. Elliott Gould and O.J. Simpson were the co-hosts, with Connie Stevens and Leslie Upgams providing musical entertainment and Robert Klein providing some comic relief. Since then, a number of companies have provided television coverage of the event: CBS, ABC owned and operated stations only, syndication, NBC owned and operated stations only, CBS, NBC, ESPN, controversy and politics, regional bias controversy. A number of critics have expressed concern about the unwritten rules regarding player position and age, as noted above. Over the years, there has been substantial criticism of a regional bias, suggesting that the Heisman balloting process has ignored West Coast players. At present, the Pacific 12 Conference represents 12 of the 77 teams in the automatic qualifying conferences. The Heisman can, and has been, presented to players from other conferences, but a random sample over a long period of time might suggest that Pac-10 players might win 16% of the Heisman Awards. In the 20 seasons between 1981 and 2002, not a single Pacific 10 Conference or other West Coast player won the Heisman Trophy. 3 Southern California players have won the trophy in the early years of the 21st century and 2 won it subsequent to Palmer. Although Terry Baker, quarterback from Oregon State, won the trophy in 1962, and Gary Beban from UCLA won in 1969, no non-USC player from the West Coast has won since Stanford's Jim Plunkett in 1970. The closest since then have been Toby Gerhart and Andrew Luck, Stanford players who were second in the Heisman balloting each year from 2009 to 2011. The West Coast bias discussion usually centers on the idea that East Coast voters see few West Coast games, because of television coverage contracts, time zone differences, or cultural interest. At Heisman projection website stiffarmtrophy.com, commentator Kari Chisholm notes that the Heisman balloting process itself is inherently biased. For Heisman voting purposes, the nation is divided into 6 regions each of which get 145 votes. Put another way, each region gets exactly 16.67% of the votes. However, each region does not constitute an even 1/6 of the population. 3 regions have larger populations than 16.67% of the national population, and 3 have less. In fact, The far west has the greatest population at 21.2% of the country and the northeast has the least at 11.9%. Nullification of 2005 award. In 2010, University of Southern California Athletic Director Pat Hayden announced the university would return its replica of the 2005 Heisman Trophy due to NCAA sanctions requiring the university to dissociate itself from Reggie Bush. The NCAA found that Bush had received gifts from an agent while at USC. On September 14, 2010, Bush voluntarily forfeited his title as a Heisman winner. The next day, the Heisman Trust announced the 2005 award would remain vacated and removed all mention of the 2005 award from its official website. Bush eventually returned his trophy to the Heisman Trust in 2012. Critical responses from the national media were strident and varied. CBS Sports.com producer J. Darren Darst opined that Bush should never have been pressured to return the award. Kalani Simpson of Fox Sports wrote, "Nice try Heisman Trust. It's a slick move to try to wipe the slate clean." Football Writers Association of America past President Dennis Dodd, on the other hand, decided to fictitiously award Bush's vacated 2005 award to Vince Young, the original runner-up that year. He wrote, "Since the Heisman folks won't re-vote, we did. Vince Young is the new winner of the 2005 Heisman." A Los Angeles Times piece argued that Bush's Heisman was tainted, but lamented that the decision came 5 years after Bush was awarded the trophy and, therefore, 4 years after the expiration of Bush's term as current holder of the Heisman title. Winners. References. External links, official website.